Welcome to Teolumen Insights, where we reveal the hidden forces that shape the way you live and show you how to use them to create real transformation and supercharge your health, mindset, and daily life. Here are your hosts, Emma Greenwood and Nathan Sinclaire.
Welcome to Teolumen Insights. I'm Nathan Sinclaire.
And I'm Emma Greenwood.
Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the work of Amit Goswami. He's a quantum physicist who's spent a lot of his career kind of trying to blend science and spirituality. So get ready, because some of his ideas are going to really challenge how you think about reality. You know, things like consciousness, even things like dreams and creativity.
Yeah, you might even find yourself looking at those late-night pizza cravings in a whole new way.
Hey, now that's an idea. But first, I think, let's start with probably his most fundamental idea. He says that consciousness, not matter, is like the foundation of everything. It's like he's flipping the script, right? On that materialist worldview that's been like dominating science for so long.
It is a pretty radical shift. And a lot of people, they have a hard time wrapping their heads around it. I mean, we're so used to thinking about the brain as the place where consciousness comes from. But Goswami uses quantum physics to argue that consciousness can't just be a product of the brain.
Okay, so how does quantum physics fit into all of this? I mean, It seems like a pretty big leap from subatomic particles to, the nature of consciousness.
Well, one thing Goswami points out is that quantum physics shows us this kind of fundamental mystery at the heart of reality. And it's this thing about quantum possibilities. So take the double slit experiment, right? You know that one. A single electron can act like a wave, and it passes through both slits at the same time. But when we try to see which slit it actually goes through, it's like it makes a choice. It picks a path, It collapses from a wave of possibility into an actual particle.
So it's almost like the act of observing it is what forces the electron to decide.
Exactly. And here's the thing. There's nothing in quantum physics itself that says how this collapse of the wave function, that's what they call it, how it actually happens. The math shows us the possibilities, but it doesn't say what picks which one becomes real.
And that's where consciousness comes in, right? Goswami is saying that consciousness is what's collapsing the wave function and making those possibilities into actual events. It's like the observer is part of making reality happen.
That's exactly it. And he goes even further. He says this means that consciousness has to be fundamental. It's not something that just popped up from matter. It's more like, he uses the analogy of a movie projector. The film is all the possibilities, and then consciousness is the light shining through it, and then it projects a specific image onto the screen. And that's our experience.
Wow. I'm starting to see why people say his ideas are mind-bending. It's a very different way of thinking about reality than what most of us are taught. But if consciousness is the starting point, then what about our brains? What are they actually doing?
That's where it gets really interesting. So for Goswami, the brain isn't actually making consciousness. It's more like a receiver, a filter that tunes into this field of consciousness. He compares it to like a radio. The radio doesn't make the music. It just picks up the signals that are already out there.
So our brains are like antennas for consciousness. That's a cool way to think about it.
Yeah, and it actually helps with some of those paradoxes, the ones you get when you try to figure out how a physical brain could create consciousness. If consciousness is already there, like the foundation of everything, then the brain is just a tool for interacting with all these possibilities.
It's like the difference between hardware and software. The brain's the hardware, and consciousness is the software that runs on it.
I like that. Yeah, it's a good way to picture it.
But if consciousness is the one choosing from these quantum possibilities, then what about free will? Does that mean our choices aren't actually ours?
The big free will question, right? Goswami's answer is kind of surprising. He thinks we do have free will, but it works through something he calls downward causation. It's not our everyday ego that's making all the calls. It's a deeper level of consciousness, like a higher self that's tapping into that field of possibilities.
Okay, so could you explain downward causation a little more? It kind of sounds like a cosmic puppet show or something.
Okay, imagine a gardener planting seeds. The seeds are all the different possibilities, right? And then the gardener chooses which seeds to plant, which ones to take care of, how to, design the garden. That's downward causation. It's a conscious will, but it's working from a higher level. It's shaping and influencing the garden, which is like our reality.
So our higher self is like the gardener, tending to the garden of our lives. and it's making choices that affect what we experience. But our ego doesn't necessarily know the whole plan.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. It does bring up questions about things like Libet's experiment. That's the one where it seemed like brain activity happened before someone was consciously aware of making a decision. But Goswami says that just shows the limits of our normal everyday consciousness. There are deeper levels at work that we're not always tuned into.
This is starting to sound a bit like Eastern philosophy,
Yeah.
with the idea of a higher self and a deeper consciousness that we can connect to.
Yeah, it's true that Goswami gets some inspiration from Eastern traditions, especially Vedanta, but he always tries to ground his ideas in science. And that brings us to another really interesting part of his work, the idea of subtle bodies.
Okay, let's dive into that. When we talk about subtle bodies, we're not just talking about our physical bodies.
Right. Goswami says we actually have several layers of bodies, and each one is connected to different kinds of experiences. We've got the physical body, obviously. But beyond that, there's the mind, the vital body, and the supramental body.
So we're not just one single physical thing. We're more like a being with multiple layers, and they all interact with each other.
Exactly. Think of it like a spectrum, from subtle to dense. Let's start with the mind. He says it's not just a product of the brain, it's a separate subtle body that interacts with the brain, but it has its own special qualities. It's what lets us give meaning to our experiences. Something that computers, with all their processing power, still can't really do.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Like scientists like John Searle and Roger Penrose, they've said that computers can't truly understand meaning. It's like there's something unique about human consciousness that lets us make that jump.
Exactly. Now think about the vital body. This is where our feelings come from, our life force energy. It's what we experience through sensations in our bodies, like, butterflies in your stomach, your heart racing, that tightness in your chest. It's the energy that makes us feel alive. And Goswami even thinks that it holds the blueprints for our physical organs.
It's kind of like the idea of chakras, right? Those energy centers in the body that are connected to different parts of who we are.
Right. And then there's the supramental body, which is the most subtle of all of them. It's connected to archetypes, universal laws, those deep ethical and moral principles that guide us. It's what connects us to something bigger than ourselves, something transcendent.
So Goswami's saying that we're not just limited to our physical bodies and our brains. We're actually much more expansive. We're connected to these subtle realms that affect our thoughts, our feelings, and our experiences.
And this multi-layered model of the self opens up a whole new way of understanding ourselves and what we're capable of.
It's a pretty big change from that materialist worldview, the one that says we're just a bunch of atoms and molecules. It's almost like we're living in a multidimensional reality, and we've only been aware of a tiny part of it.
It really does make us rethink what it means to be human. And we're just getting started. Stay tuned for the next part of our deep dive, because we're going to be exploring how all of this connects to things like creativity, dreams, and those aha moments of insight.
And if you're enjoying this exploration of Amit Goswami's work, don't forget to like and subscribe to Teolumen Insights for more deep dives into all the fascinating and mind-expanding stuff out there.
Welcome back to Teolumen Insights. We're continuing our journey through the fascinating world of Amit Goswami.
Yeah, last time we kind of set the stage, right? We explored his big idea that consciousness is like the fundamental thing, and that we're not just physical bodies. We have these subtle bodies too.
Right. And now things are going to get even more interesting. We're going to explore how all of this plays out in our, everyday lives.
All right, I'm ready for more. Hit me with it. What's next?
Let's talk about creativity. Have you ever, been struggling with a problem and then suddenly the solution just pops into your head out of nowhere?
Oh, yeah, totally. Like a bolt from the blue. It
Yeah.
happens all the time when I'm writing. I hit a wall, step away for a bit, and then boom, the perfect line or plot twist just appears.
Goswami would say that's not magic. It's the power of unconscious processing doing its thing. He thinks our unconscious mind is always exploring possibilities, in that quantum realm we talk about. It's like this background process that's always running, even when we're not aware of it.
So it's like our conscious mind is just the tip of the iceberg. And under the surface, there's this like huge ocean of unconscious processing going on.
Exactly. And that unconscious processing is where creativity comes from. Those aha moments. Think about it. Our conscious mind is kind of limited, it can only handle a few things at a time. But the unconscious mind doesn't have those limits. It can explore tons of possibilities all at once, making connections that our conscious mind wouldn't even think of.
So those creative breakthroughs, they're not just random. They're the result of this deeper process of exploration that's happening beneath the surface.
That's it. And Goswami believes we can actually get better at being creative by learning to tap into that unconscious processing. Things like meditation, visualization, even just spending time in nature can help quiet the conscious mind and let those deeper insights come up.
It's like creating space for those aha moments to happen. Instead of forcing it, we're learning to trust the process.
Now, speaking of unconscious processes, it makes you think about dreams, doesn't it?
Dreams have always been so fascinating to me, so strange and surreal, but they often feel like they have these hidden meanings.
Goswami would agree with you there. He thinks
Yeah.
dreams give us a window into our unconscious, offering glimpses into those deeper layers of ourselves. He's actually come up with like a 5-tier system for classifying dreams. Each one is connected to a different subtle body.
Wait, different types of dreams? I had no idea.
According to Goswami, yes. We have physical body dreams, which are basically replays of stuff from our waking lives or, just physical sensations. Then there are vital body dreams, which are more emotional, dealing with our relationships and desires.
So like that dream I had where I was flying, would that be a vital body dream? It definitely felt pretty freeing.
It could be. Then there are mental body dreams, which usually involve problem solving or working through mental challenges. Supramental dreams, those tap into the archetypal realms, giving insights into universal principles and moral dilemmas. And lastly, there are spiritual dreams, which can be super transformative, giving glimpses into our true nature and purpose.
Wow, I never knew dreams could be so complex. It makes me want to start paying more attention to them, try to figure out what they mean.
That's exactly what Goswami wants us to do. He sees dream analysis as a really valuable tool for self-discovery and spiritual growth.
It's like having a direct line to our unconscious, a way to access the wisdom that's already there, even if we're not consciously aware of it.
Now, all this talk about consciousness and subtle bodies, it might seem kind of far out, not very scientific. But what's interesting is that Goswami uses these ideas to challenge some of the basic assumptions of our current scientific model, especially when it comes to evolution.
Yeah, evolution is often presented as this purely material process driven by random mutations and natural selection, but Goswami sees it differently, right?
Exactly. For him, evolution isn't just about survival of the fittest. It's about the evolution of consciousness itself. He argues that consciousness is what drives the creative leaps in evolution, guiding the process towards greater complexity.
So it's not just a random accidental thing. There's an intelligence behind it, a direction.
Precisely. And this leads him to question some of the ideas of neo-Darwinism. Like he points to the fossil record, which shows these periods of rapid change and then long stretches of stability. These jumps in evolution, he says, they're hard to explain if it's all just gradual random mutations. It's like there's this creative principle at play, guiding the process towards specific outcomes.
Like those gaps in the fossil record, they're evidence of a kind of quantum leap in evolution, a sudden change in possibilities that leads to these, new life forms.
That's a great way to put it. He even suggests that some mutations might not be random at all. They might be influenced by a kind of quantum consciousness that's working at a deeper level, guiding evolution towards greater awareness.
It's a pretty bold idea.
Yeah.
But it does make you wonder if we've been too quick to dismiss the role of consciousness in the big picture of things. Like we've been so focused on the material world that we've missed the possibility that consciousness might be playing a much bigger role than we thought.
It's a perspective that definitely challenges us to rethink our place in the universe and how all life is connected. And this leads us to another fascinating area where Goswami applies his ideas, quantum healing.
Okay, healing. This is where things get really practical, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to use quantum physics to get healthier?
That's the exciting part. Goswami believes that if we understand these principles of quantum physics and the role of consciousness, we can tap into a much deeper potential for healing within ourselves. It's not about replacing conventional medicine, but about expanding our understanding of what's possible, recognizing that healing involves the whole person, not just the physical body, the mind, the vital body, even the spiritual dimension.
So it's more of a holistic view of healing. We're not just a bunch of symptoms to be treated, but whole, complex beings who have the power to heal ourselves.
Exactly. And this is where the idea of quantum healing comes in. The idea that healing can happen not just through physical treatments, but through changes in consciousness. Remember those quantum possibilities, because Goswami thinks our health isn't fixed. It exists as a bunch of possibilities that our consciousness can influence.
So it's like we have more control over our healing than we've been told. We're not just, passively accepting whatever health problems we have.
That's a really important point. It's not about magically wishing ourselves well. It's about understanding that our consciousness is powerful and it can interact with the energy in our bodies and actually change how they function. And he's not just talking about the placebo effect here. He believes consciousness can literally change reality, including the processes that control our health.
This makes me think about those stories of spontaneous remission, where people with really serious illnesses suddenly get better for no apparent reason. Could those be examples of quantum healing?
Goswami would definitely say those cases show the power of consciousness to override physical patterns. He thinks those spontaneous healings happen when there's a sudden shift in consciousness, like a change in belief or perception, and that opens up a new possibility for the body to heal itself. It's like a quantum jump from being sick to being healthy.
It's like the person's consciousness collapses the wave function of their illness and picks a different outcome.
Exactly. And what's even more fascinating is that he believes we can develop this ability for quantum healing through practices like creative visualization, meditation, and even energy healing techniques.
So it's not like we're just stuck with our genes or our circumstances. We can actually be part of our own healing by connecting to these deeper levels of consciousness. I'm starting to see how all these ideas, consciousness, subtle bodies, quantum possibilities, they're all linked together. It's like a whole new way of understanding ourselves and what we can do.
And it's a way of thinking that empowers us to be more active in shaping our reality, not just our health, but everything in our lives. And that's what we're going to explore in the last part of our deep dive, quantum activism.
I can't wait to get into that.
Okay.
But before we move on, just a reminder to our listeners, if you're digging this exploration of Amit Goswami's work, don't forget to like and subscribe to Teolumen Insights.
Welcome back to Teolumen Insights. We're wrapping up our deep dive into Amit Goswami's work, and this has been one of our most thought-provoking conversations yet.
It really has.
Yeah.
We've gone from quantum possibilities to subtle bodies to rethinking evolution. It's been a lot.
It has been quite a journey, and in this last part, we're gonna get into territory that some people might think is a little out there, especially for a science-focused discussion. We're going to talk about spirituality and even, the big G word, God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely a topic that can get people pretty fired up. But, as we've seen, Goswami isn't afraid to tackle those big questions. And what I find so interesting is that he doesn't approach it from religious dogma. He comes at it from a scientific perspective.
He really does. He's always searching for those connections between science and spirituality. So how does quantum physics, inform his understanding of God?
That's a good question. Well, Goswami sees quantum physics as a kind of bridge, right, between the material world and that transcendent realm that spiritual traditions have been talking about for centuries. He sees God as the non-local consciousness that's behind everything. It's not a being in the traditional sense, but more like the ground of being itself, the source of all possibilities.
So the universe is this vast ocean of consciousness, and we're all just waves in that ocean.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And Goswami would say that the whole purpose of life, from a spiritual point of view, is to realize our connection to that ocean, to wake up to our true nature as expressions of that divine consciousness.
It's like that idea of enlightenment in Eastern traditions, transcending the ego and experiencing the oneness of everything.
Right, exactly. It's about recognizing that we're not separate, isolated beings. We're all part of this interconnected web of life.
But if that's true, if we're all part of this divine consciousness, then how do we explain all the suffering and evil in the world? It seems kind of contradictory, doesn't it?
That is a huge question. It's something that's challenged theologians and philosophers forever. And Goswami doesn't avoid it. He acknowledges the reality of suffering, but he says we need to look at it from a wider perspective. He thinks that while God is the source of all possibilities, we have the free will to choose from those possibilities. And, sometimes those choices lead to suffering.
So it's not that God is causing the suffering. It's more like God provides the canvas, and we're the ones painting the picture, and sometimes, we use some pretty dark colors.
That's a great way to think about it.
Mm.
And he even suggests that suffering can actually serve a purpose in our spiritual evolution. You know, it can push us to grow, to wake up to who we really are, to develop compassion and empathy.
So the challenges we face are actually opportunities to learn and evolve, to become more whole and complete beings.
Right. And that leads us to another important question. How does this quantum view of God and spirituality, how does it change how we think about things like prayer and meditation?
Well, those are practices that are often associated with religion, but more and more people are using them outside of religion, as ways to reduce stress and grow personally.
Exactly. And Goswami sees them as powerful ways to tap into that non-local consciousness, to connect with the divine within us and in the universe. It's not about asking God for favors or trying to control things, but more about aligning ourselves with the creative flow of the universe, opening ourselves up to guidance and inspiration.
It's about surrendering to something bigger than ourselves, trusting that there's a wisdom and intelligence that we can connect to if we quiet our minds and open our hearts.
And in that state of surrender, we can access so much more, right? More creativity, more healing, more wisdom. It's like we're shifting from the limited view of the ego to a more expansive way of being.
It's not just about personal transformation either. It's about understanding that we're all connected and using that understanding to create a world that's more compassionate and just.
And that's what Goswami calls quantum activism, right? It's about putting all of these principles into practice, making choices that reflect our understanding of how everything is connected, the power of consciousness, and our role as co-creators with the universe.
It's about moving past the illusion that we're separate and embracing a worldview that's more inclusive and compassionate, one that recognizes the inherent dignity and worth of every being.
That's a vision worth fighting for sure. Wow, it's been incredible exploring the work of Amit Goswami. I feel like my whole perspective on reality has been shaken up. It's left me feeling a sense of awe and possibility.
What resonated with you the most from our deep dive?
For me, it's the idea that we're not just passive observers in this whole cosmic show. We actually have the power to help create reality through our choices, our intentions, and our awareness.
It is a powerful message, and it encourages us to live more intentionally with more compassion and with a deeper awareness of how everything is connected.
Well said. And on that note, we want to thank you for joining us on this exploration of Amit Goswami's groundbreaking work. We hope it sparked your curiosity and inspired you to explore these ideas further on your own.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe to Teolumen Insights for more explorations into the mysteries of consciousness and the nature of reality.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep choosing love.